We have this article here in the New York Post about the big event that just occurred, namely Dark Brandon taking out the leader of Al-Qaeda. So let's dive into it here. Inside the decades-long quest to kill Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri. U.S. intelligence had hunted Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri for decades, then spent several months meticulously planning his death once he was traced to Afghanistan, where he was put up as a guest of the ruling Taliban following the disastrous U.S. withdrawal last year. All right, now let me just pause here to say, the whole meticulously planned his death thing, you have to take all of this stuff with a massive grain of salt, because the U.S. has, routinely lied about many aspects of things like this. So namely, I remember when bin Laden was assassinated, one of the things they claimed is he hid behind a bunch of women, which that turned out to be bullshit. Another thing they mentioned was he had stacks of pornography in there. That turned out to be bullshit. It was all they poured the propaganda on thick for obvious reasons. They wanted to portray it, in almost a comic book way of good versus evil, which in some ways, of course, you can say it was good versus evil, but you can't lie in the process of doing this. So anyway, they say the coward who co-planned the September 11th attacks had become the world's most wanted terrorist soon after his cohort Osama bin Laden was killed in a daring U.S. raid in May 2011 with a $25 million bounty on his head. Under 4 presidents, U.S. intelligence operatives hunted al-Zawahiri, who was rumored variously to be in Pakistan's tribal area or inside Afghanistan. The CIA came tantalizingly close to possibly capturing al-Zawahiri in 2003 and then killing him in 2004. The agency thought it finally had him in its sights in 2009, only to be tricked by a double agent who blew himself up. Jesus. Killing 7 agency employees and wounding 6 more in Khost, Afghanistan. I did not know that story. So the U.S. got tricked by a double agent, and they killed them instead of Zawahiri. This was, by the way, is the picture of them discussing taking out Zawahiri. This is people are trying to build this up to be like the famous picture during the bin Laden raid and stuff. He was finally pinpointed earlier this year in Afghanistan's capital, Kabul. Is it Kabul or Kabul? I never know. Staying with his wife, his daughter, and her children in a safe house supported by the Haqqani Taliban network, officials said. Quote, "We were able to build a pattern of life through multiple independent sources of information to inform the operation," a senior administration official told reporters Monday. Throughout that time, the terrorist appeared to never leave the safe house, but was spotted on multiple occasions for sustained periods of time on the balcony where he was ultimately pulverized Sunday. 2 senior national security officials were first briefed on the intelligence in early April, with the president being briefed by National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan shortly thereafter. Through May and June, a small circle of officials across the government worked to vet the intelligence and device options for Biden, the official said. Biden was then briefed on the proposed strike by his national security aides on July 1st after returning from a 5-day trip to Europe. Officials had painstakingly constructed a pattern of life to pin down al-Zawahiri's movements, even building a scale model of the safe house that was shown to Biden in the White House Situation Room. The president received a final briefing on July 25th as he remained isolated in the White House residence with COVID-19. Biden, who had tried to halt then-President Barack Obama's deadly strike on bin Laden, this time gave the sign-off for a precise, tailored airstrike as soon as the opportunity arose, officials said. See, now, again, precise, tailored airstrike. Now, is it possible that they did a precise, tailored airstrike? Yes, but I would not take their word at it. It is certainly possible that we're going to learn in due time, actually, a bunch of civilians were killed, and the way they said it went down, it didn't go down. Because, again, there's a track record here that we have to bear in mind. That opportunity came early Sunday, late Saturday in Washington, after what Biden described as clear and convincing signs that they could kill him in a way to minimize the risk of harm to other civilians. A further 36 hours of intelligence analysis would follow before U.S. officials began sharing that al-Zawahiri was dead. The Haqqani Taliban network was seen restricting access to the safe house and relocating the dead al-Qaeda leader's family, which officials interpreted as the country's rulers trying to conceal the fact that they harbored the world's most wanted terrorist. Justice has been delivered, and this terrorist leader is no more, Biden finally told the nation on Monday. Now we make it clear again tonight that no matter how long it takes, no matter where you hide, if you are a threat to our people, the United States will find you and take you out, he said. By the way, it is kind of crazy that homeboy lasted as long as he did. 9/11 was in 2001. Dog, it's 2022 skis. He lasted a long time on the run. Ayman al-Zawahiri was just 15 when he was known to have sought to overthrow Egypt's infidel regime, ultimately serving 3 years in prison in connection to the 1981 assassination of Egyptian President Anwar Sadat. It was after his release in 1984 that he first courted bin Laden, who was vowed by his soon-to-be right-hand man's lifelong devotion to jihad. Who was wowed, I should have said, not vowed. Bin Laden always looked up to him, said terrorism expert Bruce Hoffman at Georgetown University. He was impressed that al-Zawahiri spent time in an Egyptian prison. He was tortured. He was a jihadi from the time he was a teenager. The pair were high on the intelligence radar for decades before September 11th, with al-Zawahiri assumed to lead al-Qaeda's tactics and organizational skills, while his supposed leader supplied charisma and cash. So this is more like the engineering guy they're saying behind the scenes. Dot the I's, cross the T's, the organizational guy. For decades, he was the mastermind behind the attacks against Americans. Biden said Monday as he declared that justice has been delivered with al-Zawahiri's death. As the commander-in-chief noted, the terrorists played a key role in the bombing of U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, killing 224 and wounding over 4,500 others in 1988. He was behind the USS Cole bombing in 2000, which killed 17 American sailors and wounded dozens more, Biden stressed. So this is allegedly the missile that they used to kill Zawahiri. They claim that it's almost like a knife bomb where it attacks one person specifically. I don't know, man. I don't know. Sometimes these things seem cartoonish. He carved a trail of murder and violence against Americans, American citizens, American service members, American diplomats, and American interests. When the U.S. invaded after the 9/11 attacks in 2001, al-Zawahiri and bin Laden fled to Pakistan as a U.S. airstrike killed al-Zawahiri's wife and at least 2 of their 6 children. He was named al-Qaeda's leader less than 2 months after bin Laden was killed in a U.S. raid on his compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan, leading the global network from isolation. By the time al-Zawahiri was finally pulverized by 2 U.S. Hellfire missiles Sunday, he had devoted nearly all of his 71 years, damn, he made it to 71, to terrorism. White House National Security spokesman John Kirby said Tuesday the U.S. had no DNA confirmation of his death, but had verified his identity through other sources. We do not have DNA confirmation. We're not going to get that confirmation. Quite frankly, based on multiple sources and methods that we've gathered information from, we don't need it, Kirby told CNN. We have visual confirmation, but we also have confirmation through other sources. Okay, so, now you have, to be frank here, the media is sucking off Brandon. they're acting, oh, he's had a great 2 weeks. Oh, he's had a great 2 weeks. Oh, yes. You're seeing a lot of that. Look, keep it real, he's probably gonna get a bump in the polls, not just from this, but also because yesterday the PACT Act passed, which is the healthcare for veterans who are victims of burn pit smoke. So, and by the way, I think Jon Stewart unironically deserves a lot of credit for that. So you got the CHIPS Act, you got the PACT Act, you got, killing the leader of Al-Qaeda. By the way, here's an important point. Saddam Hussein dead long time ago, right? Remember, they claimed, oh, we got to get Saddam Hussein. He was responsible for 9/11. He wasn't, but the whole point was we got to get him, and that's why we're going into Iraq. Okay, well, he's gone. Why are we still in Iraq? Saddam Hussein gone. Osama bin Laden gone. The head of ISIS gone. Now the second in command of Al-Qaeda gone. So all the main targets are like, all right, can we declare victory and totally leave the Middle East now? And the answer is going to be no. Now, to be fair, Dark Brandon has taken all the boots on the ground out of Afghanistan, but he's now basically starving the country and stealing their own money from them. So you have like starvation on the ground in Afghanistan now, which is honestly could be more devastating than the actual war itself in terms of how much pain is now around Afghanistan and how much starvation and how much suffering. So it's sort of like damning with faint praise. Now, they used an airstrike to take this guy out. There's conflicting reports on Biden's approach to drone strikes. There's one report that said, effectively, he kind of stopped the drone war. Is that possible? Yes. But I seem to remember at the end of Trump's time in office, he sort of changed the disclosure rules around drone strikes. So I don't even think you have to report them anymore. So it's possible that Biden is continuing the drone war, but sort of, it looks like he's not because there's now not nearly as many disclosure rules around it. So all I can say on that front is I'm agnostic. I don't know. But as a general rule, when you look at the numbers and the breakdown, and this is why Daniel Hale is locked up now, by the way. He was the whistleblower. we learn that like 90% of the time, these airstrikes, particularly drone strikes, kill innocent civilians. 90% of the time. And Daniel Hale blew the whistle on that, and then he got locked up. He was found guilty. Oh, you're spreading, top secret classified information and you can't do that. Even though, textbook definition of a whistleblower. Telling Americans things they have a right to know because it's being done with our money in our name. And again, he's suffering consequences as a result of that. And this is a guy who's been tortured mentally because he feels so much guilt over what he did. And there was another report, it was somewhere in the ballpark of 22,000 to 58,000 innocent civilians dead as a result of airstrikes. So, I look, maybe I'm a little different from some other lefties in the sense that I got no problem whatsoever if people want to celebrate the leader of Al-Qaeda being assassinated. Anybody can understand. I think anybody who's being reasonable can understand that. But the overarching point that I think is fair to make is that the process and the procedure and the organization that has been put into place to get us to this point also has a trail of dead bodies that's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of innocent civilian deaths long. So, it seems like even though I get the positive reaction to this, everybody needs to keep in mind and understand what got us to this point and what the real implication is of a permanent drone war, permanent, airstrike situation that we're in all the time, all around the world, throughout the Middle East. There are consequences to that, And now, interesting point, and I'll end on this one here, but there was a headline that I saw, I'm forgetting which publication it was in right before I came on air, and they said, now there's probably going to be an increase in attacks against, Westerners as a result of this. And so they actually think, in a sense, killing him made us less safe, which is, that's quite a paradox, isn't it? That's quite a catch-22. Because on the one hand, you want to, take out the bad guys who are responsible for 9/11 and bring about justice, of course. But if that actually makes us less safe, then there's an argument maybe against that. Look, in a world that made sense, we'd be able to arrest the criminals and the terrorists and put them on trial or military tribunal, as long as it's fair with due process, and find them guilty and take care of it that way. Well, we threw all that out the window. Forget any sort of notion of human rights or due process or civil liberties or whatever. And, you just assassinate. And now we're talking about maybe a situation where people are less safe as a result of it, which is so ironic. Because again, if the whole point of the war on terror was to keep us safe, in many respects it made us less safe. It's the backlash effect that we talk about all the time. It's unintended consequences, or blowback as the CIA calls it. And there might be more of it now as a result of this. So, look, overall it's a very complex, complicated situation, but I wanted to give you guys the specifics of it. And, you can make up your own mind as to what you think about it. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You want to.